is the CBS Evening News. Bob Schieffer reporting. Good evening. Michael Dukakis and Jesse Jackson took a big step today toward avoiding one nasty fight at next month's convention in Atlanta. Their forces agreed in Washington to overhaul procedures for selecting delegates during the presidential race 4 years from now. That's a victory for Jackson. In Denver, where the party platform is being written, Jackson's people lost, however, when they insisted the platform include a freeze on defense spending and a call for higher taxes on upper-income people. The story in Denver first from Bruce Morton.
The Democrats move toward the first Jackson versus Dukakis platform votes bathed in sweetness and light. Eleanor Holmes Norton, the Jackson representative here, talked about the kind of fight he'd told her to wage.
He said to me that in doing so I should remember, and that his delegates should remember, that what counts is the final victory that we shall achieve in November. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I want to thank everyone who has worked so hard to bring us to this point and help to unify our party in a way that I believe makes our victory in November much more likely.
The first disagreement, the first vote, came over a Jackson proposal to increase taxes on corporations and on Americans making over $200,000 a year, and to freeze defense spending.
Investing in America and reducing the deficit requires that the wealthy and corporations pay their fair share, and that we restrain Pentagon spending.
Governor Dukakis does not support a tax increase. Governor Dukakis does not support a reduction in defense expenditures at this time.
All those in favor, please stand. Voting in favor of the amendment were 44 members. In opposition to the amendment, 108, and so the amendment is defeated.
In general, the Dukakis strategy has been to agree on principle, accepting Jackson language promising to reverse Reagan administration cuts in education, but rejecting a specific Jackson proposal to double education spending. The Dukakis people are saying don't lock him in, and they have the votes here. The Jackson campaign, on the other hand, has enough votes to appeal any of these decisions to the full convention. And it's still true, nobody is mad. Bruce Morton, CBS News, Denver.
Jackson was in Puerto Rico today when he got word of the agreement to overhaul delegate selection procedures, and we have that side of the story now from Betsy Aaron.
There is no end to Jesse Jackson's campaign. It's not over till it's over, and it is far from over. Jackson's now fighting to consolidate his power. And today in Washington, he had a victory when Dukakis and Jackson forces on the Democratic Party Rules Committee agreed to overhaul the rules. In 1992, there will be 40% fewer superdelegates appointed by the party, and delegates are going to have to more accurately reflect the popular vote. This year, in 5 states and Puerto Rico, Jackson claims he lost over 100 delegates due him because of the current rules.
We've been able to effectively negotiate at committee meetings and at hearings, as opposed to having bloody confrontations on the floor.
Jackson came to Puerto Rico this week wielding the political clout he's won and using his persuasive powers to squeeze at least 6 delegates and maybe more out of the Democrats already pledged to Michael Dukakis.
Even though we were not legally obliged to give delegates, we are accepting that there is a question of fairness.
While wrestling with rules, delegates, and the platform, as well as the publicity surrounding the possibility or probability of a Jackson vice presidency, Jackson is also looking way beyond the convention and election.
What he doesn't want to do in 1988 is ruin his chances of running for president again. What he does want to do is leave an impact on the party and in the country that says, I'm a serious contender, I'm going to be back, and someday I may be president of the United States.
Jackson is solidifying his base, spending time with all those supporters who make up an expanded Democratic Party, a party over which Jesse Jackson intends to have enormous influence. Betsy Aaron, CBS News, San Juan.
Michael Dukakis was staying close to home this weekend, but he had plenty on his mind, too, and Bill Whitaker has more now on the Massachusetts governor's campaign.
Michael Dukakis has stepped off the campaign trail for a few days, relaxing on the picturesque Massachusetts island of Nantucket. But even here, he can't escape the swirl of pressures and questions surrounding his choice of a running mate. Today, the Boston Globe reported 3 new names are under consideration: Congressman Lee Hamilton of Indiana House Majority Leader Thomas Foley of Washington, and Arkansas Senator Dale Bumpers. Dukakis says he's casting his net wide.
There are no lists at this point. I'm going to proceed with what I hope is going to be a good, thorough process, and we're going to be considering lots of people.
The names that have surfaced so far offer regional and philosophical balance to the ticket, a time-tested formula.
He is reaching out to find a candidate who can help him hold Democrats who have found good reasons to vote for Ronald Reagan against both Mondale and Carter.
Dukakis says his main criterion for a running mate is the ability to step into the presidency if necessary. And observers of his governorship say Dukakis would also want a number two who could assume an active role in his administration. Massachusetts Senator John Kerry served as lieutenant governor under Dukakis from 1982 to 84.
He gave me significant responsibility with a very specific portfolio. He permitted me to be a partner within the limits of being the number two person.
In each case, Dukakis has taken the person who's under him very seriously and given them some significant responsibility, and I would be very surprised if he didn't do the same with the vice president.
The choice of a running mate is the most important decision Dukakis will have to make before the convention next month. But for the next few days at least, Dukakis says he's putting everything on hold. He'll be returning to the campaign next Tuesday. Bill Whitaker, CBS News, Nantucket.
And coming up next on tonight's CBS Evening News, demonstrators filled the streets of Moscow today, and later Barbara Bush speaks her mind about people who call her husband a wimp.
If you heard the report on 59 cold cereals by a leading consumer magazine, you'd fall through the floor.
Mine's high in calcium.
And salt.
Salt?
High in fiber.
And sugar.
Sugar?
Lots of protein. And added fat.
Fat?
Nabisco shredded wheat was rated tops in nutrition. For no added sugar or salt, low fat, plenty of fiber and protein. Nabisco shredded wheat. Nobody else.
Nabisco.
Dedication, attention to detail, and caring. At Realty World, we believe these qualities are the most important considerations in helping people with the purchase or sale of their home. It's our people who make the difference and get the results. Because at Realty World, it's not just the quality of the material our jackets are made of, but the quality of the people who wear them.
In the continuing Soviet-Canadian tit-for-tat spy battle, the Russians today expelled Canada's military attaché and said 7 former Canadian diplomats in Moscow could not come back. And in a move that could hamper operation of the Canadian embassy, most of the embassy's Russian workers were withdrawn. The first Soviet Communist Party conference since the one convened by dictator Joseph Stalin almost 50 years ago opens next week in Moscow, and signs of a new era were visible throughout the city today. Barry Peterson has more on that.
It was about as far from the Stalin days as Moscow could get. Demonstrations breaking out all over town. Indeed, this one was for a monument to the millions who died in the Stalin purges. And on a busy downtown street, police were faced with a variety of unauthorized protest. One supporting Mikhail Gorbachev and his cause for more democracy. But democracy didn't always fare well. When a man unfurled a small banner demanding more power to the people, it didn't last long. Members of a group trying to form a new political party tried to hold their demonstration. That didn't last long either. There were only a handful of arrests, and in the midst of it all, even moments, there were downright odd. "Move along," this man shouted. When they made fun of him, he finally pulled out his walkie-talkie. "See," he warned, "I'm with the KGB." That didn't make them move either. All of this comes on the eve of a Communist Party conference to discuss changes in the Soviet system. Moscow was dressing up today, preparing for the 5,000 delegates who opened for business on Tuesday. There's one touch of old-style repression that may ring familiar. Police saying they'll crack down on any demonstrations during the party conference. To some of the various protest groups in the Soviet Union, that's become a challenge to take to the streets. Barry Peterson, CBS News, Moscow.
Progress was reported today as talks on peace in Angola and Namibia ended in Cairo. There will be another meeting next month possibly in this country, which Angolan rivals are already trying to make into a public relations battleground. Wyatt Andrews reports.
I am not fighting a South African.
He might lead the civil war in Angola, but he faces the political fight of his life trying to win support in black America. Jonas Savimbi is touring the U.S. South this weekend, but to the protesters there to greet him, it is a cynical waste of his time.
Savimbi, have you heard? This is not Johannesburg.
He's South Africa's agent. He does South Africa's bidding in the region.
In the war against the Marxist regime in Angola, Savimbi does get most of his direct military aid from South Africa. And Savimbi, who wants a raise on the $15 million he gets from the Reagan administration, knows he has to explain his South African connection.
If we got any support from them, it was out of necessity. When you are fighting a war, you get support where you find it.
Savimbi's battle for new aid was opposed this week by one of the Marxist leaders of Angola. As if the hot war in the field had transferred to Washington, Angolan production minister Pedro Van Dunham held an unprecedented meeting with the anti-Marxist George Shultz. To court the American public, both Van Dunham, the Marxist, and Savimbi, the rebel, are using professional public relations advisors. The liberal David Fenton handles Van Dunham, while Savimbi, to the outrage of his critics, hired the Republican-connected firm of Black, Manafort, and Stone to arrange his swing through the South.
It's well orchestrated, generously financed, and part of a disinformation campaign on the part of a major public relations firm.
The stakes in the PR war are high because the Civil War has never been so close to settlement. Peace talks mediated by the U.S. this weekend in Cairo are closing in on a compromise in which Cuban troops would leave Angola and South African troops would go home. Savimbi, meanwhile, is not part of those peace talks, and the Angolan government has refused to talk to him. Savimbi wages his anxious PR campaign in part out of fear the U.S. government will forget his calls for democracy in the rush to get the Cubans out of Angola. Wyatt Andrews, CBS News, Washington.
A U.S. Marine Sea Stallion helicopter on a training flight crashed into a hillside in southern Japan today, killing all 7 Marines on board. The helicopter went down in dense fog and rain less than 2 miles from a nuclear power plant. In Austria today, Pope John Paul said Mass for thousands of Catholics visiting from communist Eastern Europe. But first, his spokesman had some explaining to do about what the Pope did not say yesterday. Doug Tennell reports.
Vatican officials today said the Pope had no intention of slighting Jews by omitting any mention of Holocaust victims during his visit to Mauthausen concentration camp on Friday. In fact, the Pope made specific reference to them this morning at a prayer service in the Austrian town of Lorch.
Mauthausen, wo Christen, Juden...
Not far from here is Mauthausen, the Pope said, where Christians, Jews, and others were persecuted. The emotion-packed issues of the Holocaust, the Church's role during the Nazi period, and the Pope's meetings with Austrian President Kurt Waldheim have largely overshadowed the pastoral themes of the Pope's visit. But near Austria's border with Yugoslavia, he returned to one of them today, reaching out to Eastern Europeans from pulpits here in Austria. At the Mass, thousands of Slavs from across the frontier. Tens of thousands crossed the Hungarian border for a service in eastern Austria yesterday. But the services have created a nightmare for Austrian authorities who fear many of the pilgrims may never go back. The government refugee camp at Treiskirchen is a vital first stop for Eastern European refugees, but it is only that. Normally, they all travel on to other Western nations, but in the last year, the United States has slowed processing of prospective immigrants from Eastern Europe, and so Austria's refugee population has mushroomed. 17,000 Eastern Europeans were here before the usual summer influx, and the Pope's visit began.
Most of the refugees in this camp have been living here for 3 or 4 years. There's even one Romanian family that's been here for 9 years, and they're still looking for a home.
The Pope has called Austria a bridge between East and West, but Austrian authorities are increasingly worried about controlling the flow. Doug Tennell, CBS News, with the Pope in Austria.
Iraq apparently has achieved a major victory over Iran in the Persian Gulf War. Iraqi troops recaptured 2 artificial islands above massive oil fields in marshes near Basra. Iran seized the islands more than 4 years ago.
Major appliances that aren't brand new can scare potential buyers away. If your real estate company can't protect them, you're not listed with the right real estate company, because you're not listed with an ERA broker. How can you help your home sell faster? Protect the major appliances. If your real estate company can't do that, then you're not listed with the right real estate company, because you're not listed with an ERA broker.
It's Lobster Fest time at Red Lobster. We know what you love the most. At our Lobster Fest, we do lobster best. No one else even comes close.
From $8.95, kids just 99 cents.
Have a tempting lobster trio. More name if you're in the mood. La, la, la. Our tails are the best at our Lobster Fest. We know how you love seafood.
Now Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, lobster and shrimp trio just $11.95.
In North Carolina, Honda lawnmowers are assembled from the wheels up. Then the final critical step, the Clara Johnson test. If Clara pulls and it starts, it's a Honda.
Ship it. When I need a laxative, I use Dulcolax.
Doris Jones talks about Dulcolax.
I like Dulcolax because it's very mild and gentle and dependable.
Dulcolax, tablets and suppositories.
Dulcolax works every single time.
Although they hold no constitutional power, the wives of presidents are often among the most influential advisors in an administration. So tonight we begin an effort to get to know the wives of those who would be our next president. We spoke this week with Barbara Bush, the wife of the vice president, at the vice presidential residence in Washington. And we asked her first about the enormous pressure of a campaign year and how it feels to be always on the record, always in the limelight.
I'm really not always in the limelight. George and I recently went to a party here where we were the guests of honor with 420 Americans. As they came through the line, half of them didn't know who I was, and several said, "Hello, Mrs. Schultz," to me, and someone else said, "Welcome to our country." So I don't think I've been in the limelight quite as much as...
This fame is not all it's cracked up to be.
Fame is not all it's cracked up to be, but...
Let me read you an impertinent question that was asked to Michael Dukakis. A reporter asked him if his wife would be like Mrs. Reagan. Would she be standing behind him all the time telling him what to do? Would you be like that?
Well, I'd like to be like Mrs. Reagan. I'd like to be, like to look like her, and I'd like to have run the White House as she has done, and I'd like to have people be just as interested in my just say yes to education as they were to her just say no to drugs. But I wouldn't be like Mrs. Reagan only because I'm larger, different. I'm Barbara Bush. And because for 43 years, I've found the way for us to have a successful marriage is for George to stay out of my household business and I stay out of his office business.
Do you consult an astrologer?
No. It's really against my faith.
You are one who is known for speaking your mind. I noticed one of your children was quoted as saying that people know where they stand with you.
That's right, and that child's never allowed in the house again. That child will never come through my doorstep again.
But is that a fair thing to say about it?
Yes, I think so.
I noticed.
And so I mean, when I have a problem, I tell people, and then I forget it. They worry for weeks, but I forget it.
Well, I noticed there was a headline in the Philadelphia Inquirer that said, "Call Bush a wimp and you have to deal with her."
That's right. Because how can you call a man who's done what this fabulous man has done a wimp? But nobody's done it to my face yet.
Well, how does that make you feel when people say that? I mean, this is politics.
It's politics, but it's such an unfair thing. The day he announced we get that, I mean, that's ridiculous. You name one person who called George Bush that has done half of what he's done, and I'd be surprised. And incidentally, if George is a wimp, then we need a lot more of them.
Up to $2,000 cash back from Subaru is worth more than the same money from anyone else.
It's worth more because Subaru builds a rugged, reliable wagon that's the best-selling import wagon in America. It's worth more because Subaru's XT6 has the same engine design found in a Ferrari or a Porsche. It's worth more because the Subaru Justy is the lowest-priced four-wheel drive passenger car in America. Up to $2,000 cash back on a Subaru is worth more because it's on a Subaru.
For all your pet means to you, shouldn't you give him and your family protection against fleas and ticks? You can with a 2-in-1 flea and tick collar from Hearts, the collar that's been protecting your pet for years. And the Hearts 2-in-1 collar kills fleas and ticks on your dog or cat for up to 5 months. It even works when wet. So get the collar that really works, because no pet should go anywhere without Hearts protection. The Hearts 2-in-1 collar, protection against fleas and ticks.
This was another day of record-high temperatures and drought in the Midwest. Residents of Chicago headed to the beach to get out of the 103-degree heat. That's the hottest it's ever been on this date there. And this is now the first June on record that Chicago has had 3 days with a mercury in triple digits. The drought is causing salt water from the Gulf of Mexico to edge up the Mississippi River. So the Army Corps of Engineers is now planning to build a dike at the bottom of the river to protect New Orleans' water supply. A proposal to bring water into the evaporating Mississippi from the other end is the subject of another heated debate. Gary Reeves has our report now on that.
A trickle of traffic started down the Mississippi River today after it was reopened by extensive dredging. But with the water level 22 feet below normal, thousands of barges remain backed up, and a proposal to help them by diverting Lake Michigan water south is mired in controversy.
It wouldn't take us 2 seconds. All the controlling structures are right in place.
With the flip of a switch, enough water could be sent down the Chicago River to raise the Mississippi by at least 6 inches. But just minutes after Illinois Governor Jim Thompson proposed the plan at a conference this week, 4 governors of Great Lakes states announced their opposition.
I don't know how diverting water out of Lake Michigan is going to help us. Is a short-term solution going to be a long-range problem?
Diversion opponents include ore boat owners who fear a 1-inch drop in Lake Superior would cost millions because they would have to lighten their loads to navigate the shallows. And both Canadian and American dam operators believe it would cut the flow of water through Niagara Falls.
That would reduce hydroelectric production and increase the cost to consumers and businesses in the region by over $50 million per year.
Despite warnings that using the lakes to float barges down the Mississippi may create even bigger problems up north, the deepening drought is increasing the pressure to divert lake water.
We're down now to historical lows throughout the system, and we're just barely squeaking by, and so 6 inches of water would be quite substantial.
A Supreme Court decree limits diversion of the Great Lakes that provide drinking water for 26 million people. But if a drought emergency is declared and water is diverted, analysts warn it would set a dangerous precedent for the future. Gary Reeves, CBS News, Chicago.
There's more to it than meets the eye. That crunch of wheat holds a sweet surprise. Raisin in the middle, Kellogg's Raisin Squares. It's one of life's sweet surprises. That wholesome wheat turns sweet inside. Raisin in the middle, Kellogg's Raisin Squares. There's more to it than meets the eye. Kellogg's Raisin Squares.
And apple cinnamon squares.
I'm pretty good at baseball, but at SLR cameras, I was really green. Then I got Canon EOS, the only autofocus SLR with the green zone. The green zone makes EOS mistake-proof. Plus, EOS lenses have computers and motors built in, so anyone can shoot like a pro. Even him. Hey, you see? Canon EOS, more than autofocus, easier than ever.
Buy EOS today with no money down, low monthly payments at participating Canon dealers.
Have you ever wondered what a baggage handler might take on vacation? What everyone should take. Samsonite's Glutton for Punishment. Get Samsonite's Glutton for Punishment, because no one knows what goes on behind closed doors.
The books of Jack Kerouac were an American cultural phenomenon, and today the long road he embarked on so many years ago finally brought him home. But not everyone is thrilled about it, and Harold Dow reports.
Today, Lowell, Massachusetts did something few people thought it would ever do. It honored a man whose lifestyle was often an embarrassment to his hometown.
Jack Kerouac was not an easy man, and to celebrate his legacy and his gifts to the city of Lowell has not been an easy process.
Jack Kerouac died 19 years ago, but it was his writing that moved a generation. In fact, he coined the phrase the Beat Generation. He wrote about 20 cult classics, including a hip novel celebrating restlessness, On the Road.
Now, this world reports you well and truly. Anyway, I wrote the book because we're all gonna die.
Kerouac was a free spirit in a depressed town. He was famous back then, but for the wrong reasons. Too much alcohol, too many drugs. In the end, not many friends. But 19 years later, memories fade.
Now everybody says, oh, I went to school with him. Oh, I had a drink with him. Oh, yes, I knew him very well. You know, he was.
They've even published a book called A Guide to Kerouac's Lowell, complete with a map that points out parts of the town that made an appearance in his work or were part of his life. It shows you the house where he was born, the church where he prayed, the cemetery where he was buried. All of this in a revitalized Lowell, a Lowell Kerouac never knew. And with good times, everyone forgave Kerouac for his sins. Well, almost everyone. The city council approved this monument 7-1.
I was the one who was against it. And the reason why I was against it is I did not want to see the type of individual with that particular type of lifestyle memorialized.
So the city memorialized the words he wrote in stone, while at the same time overlooking the lifestyle he led. Harold Dow, CBS News, Lowell, Massachusetts.
And that's the news. Susan Spencer will be here tomorrow. Later tonight on West 57th, Meredith Vieira unmasked the Phantom of the Opera. Tony Award-winning actor Michael Crawford. I'm Bob Schieffer, CBS News, New York. Good night.
Right through the tire, Greg. To be the best, you have to train constantly. Leadership demands continuous learning. Way to go. In sports or in business. We're Siemens USA, training our customers and our 27,000 employees to stay ahead in advanced electronic and electrical technology. Because when it's time to perform, there's no substitute for solid training. Right through the tire, Greg. We are Siemens USA.
As soon as you get out there, call Mike Butler at the Century 21 office.
Well, he already called me, Dad.
Check the utility bills.
I will, Dad.
You know, the right mortgage.
Dad, isn't this guy Butler a friend of yours?
Yeah, sure.
If he's half the guy you are, I bet I can trust him.
Come with us. Take care of yourself.
Put your trust in number one.
Write your mother.
Century 21.
Michigan International Speedway erupts with NASCAR's fastest. It's the Michigan 400 tomorrow on CBS Sports.
This is CBS.
Last year, half of our sales were of products that didn't even exist 5 years ago. Like our pacemaker that changes speed to meet demands on the heart. We're Siemens USA, leaders in medical engineering, telecommunications, energy, automation, and electronics with 23 research and development centers coast to coast, helping to build a stronger, more productive America. We are Siemens USA.
The Van Pattens meet one tough customer.
Dick Van Patten, you're saying someone can oil and lube my car better than me? Yes, it's called